You're listening to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro, a place to learn about how to grow your business and stay ahead of technological advances before they become mainstream. This episode is sponsored by Ingram Micro's Xvantage, the next level way to transform your business's potential and reshape how customers see you through advanced transactional data. Let's get into it. Welcome to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro. I'm your host, Shelby Skrhak, and our guest today is Thomas Mann, Senior Solutions Center Engineer for Ingram Micro. Tom, welcome.
Hi, Shelby. Good to be here.
Excellent. Well, today we're talking about the latest with Cisco Secure Firewall and really discussing the reasons to refresh your firewall. But like always, I like to try to zoom out a little bit. So, Tom, can you give us a quick primer to what firewalls do against today's threats?
Yeah, so first of all, what firewalls are really doing is they're protecting networks. They could be protecting data centers. You might have a campus network, a branch network, maybe an edge firewall for a small business connecting to the internet, or in a data center, with multi-tenancy or a private cloud protecting the different types of traffic from each other. Those are all real important things firewalls do. They also provide virtual private networking for remote access. That's what you're going to be connecting to when you VPN in. But today, a modern firewall really has to have a good intrusion prevention system, be able to deal with files coming through and malware, so an anti-malware system. They'll even have security intelligence feeds that try to block bad hosts out there and provide really good visibility onto what's going on in your environment.
Two important points that you mentioned there, the visibility, certainly. And we're going to talk about some of the visibility that's possible with the latest firewall, but also the modern intrusion. So as I understand, comparing today's firewall with the ones before, that wasn't a feature that was on the radar, right?
Right. The modern way intrusion prevention and any malware is done wasn't really there a way back. Initially there was some capability. You go back farther and you would usually have dedicated intrusion boxes separate from your firewall, where now we could do it all in one box and not have to have them separate. Now these firewalls, you can actually, if you want, also put in intrusion-only mode if you want to protect an area of your network from intrusions, different options there.
And as far as the time frame, you mentioned firewalls a while back. How far back are we talking?
Well, about 10 years ago, intrusion prevention was starting to get popular. The intrusion prevention back then was quite basic and not near as good as the stuff now. And before that, a lot of firewalls didn't have any. But you could have firewalls that were sold 5 years ago that might not have intrusion prevention on them. Really, you need it. It's just all kinds of crud attacks coming in from bad actors that the intrusion prevention just stops all the time. And those security feeds, which are blocking bad computers out there, bad hosts, knowing bad sites that are trying to attack you.
Yeah, I mean, the common vulnerabilities for older firewalls are something we definitely need to talk about. Really quick, though. So in looking at the timeline of a firewall, so I mean, firewalls, they're the security workforce. They're doing all the heavy lifting. But what about maintenance and updates? I mean, Tom, in talking to Ingram Micro partners about their customers, like what is that tendency to overlook updating the firewall? Is there even this consciousness that, it's just like any piece of technology and machinery, you kind of need to keep an eye on it and keep it updated, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The security is always changing. Bad actors, hackers are always getting better tools. And there's really two things. There's the firewall just getting too old, too slow to have good security, or even too slow to deal with the current bandwidth.
Yeah.
But also even just updates, like automatic type updates, like updating your Windows PC, the intrusion prevention, the anti-malware, there's geolocation databases, all these things get updated regularly. So you might have your firewall weekly getting updates of all these different things, the security feeds. A case in point, back in 2021, there were 2 Well, there are many attacks, but there are two that I'm going to mention. There was the Log4j attack, which attacked databases on the network.
Mm-hmm.
Well, once it was identified and out there, the Cisco intrusion prevention got an update and then would just block that attack so that even if your database wasn't updated, you were protected. Another one was a big attack on NAS boxes, very popular network attached storage boxes. And I talked to resellers actually that anyone who had a modern firewall with intrusion prevention was the Cisco was protected, but some of their small businesses would have more basic consumer like home router type ones. They weren't protected and their NAS boxes were completely compromised and they lost everything. So the intrusion prevention saved them. I've talked to customers in the past, some of them are on top of it, but there are some where I get on with the end customer and I go, well, let me show you what I have. And I go in and they're clearly have nothing updating, and like, well, this is like 3-year-old code, that type of thing. So you do have to be aware, that you can't just leave it. It's just like, I guess, like a PC. You can't not update Windows for 3 years and expect it's going to be safe.
Yeah, it's not set and forget it.
Right.
Well, so let's continue talking about those vulnerabilities for the firewalls. And I guess looking at how we've changed. I mean, I guess the environment that firewalls are trying to protect, I think of it as almost like a BCAD type of thing of before and after COVID in terms of this, remote workforce, the hybrid workforce now. So how does refreshing your firewall help a customer with their hybrid workforce specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you mentioned the vulnerabilities. These new firewalls actually can identify the vulnerabilities on your own network, and then you could tune the intrusion prevention to protect against those vulnerabilities. So that's another interesting thing they can do, the Cisco
Secure
Firewall. Oh, no, that's for everything.
Okay, yeah.
For the remote specifically, like the new firewall series, the Cisco Secure Firewall 3100, it could actually get 17 times more connected or VPN users than its predecessor models. So that's many, many more, 17 times, 17x more than I guess the previous model was the 2100. So, and that's needed heavily because before the pandemic, you might get 5 or 10% of your workforce remoting in. Now, on a daily basis, it might be 75% of your workforce is remoting in. It's just night and day difference, the amount of people that need to come in. And you just couldn't do that with the older firewall. And it's more of a hardware thing, the performance of it, and what's under the hood.
Well, looking at encrypted traffic and application environments, that's another thing that we're looking at heavily and trying to understand to make sure that it doesn't interfere with the performance of these remote workforces, basically. So what are the challenges or limitations from older firewalls with regard to encrypted traffic, and how does Cisco Secure Firewall feature, how does that help?
Oh, absolutely. So with encrypted traffic, it makes it difficult to identify what that traffic is. We want to classify it, identify what applications the users are using so we can protect them. Also run the intrusion prevention in any malware. So when it's encrypted, it makes it more difficult to do. You got really two options. You could decrypt it, and some older firewalls couldn't decrypt at all. These current ones definitely can, more than just the 3100. That takes a lot of load to decrypt the traffic. There are ways that could be assisted. These new ones deal with that quite well. And over 80% of the internet is encrypted now. Like all the sites you go to are HTTPS. The big deal with that is also the fact that the encryption algorithms are even changing. There's a thing called TLS that's used when you're going to a secure site. The last year or so, 1.3 of that came out. Well, all the firewalls have to be updated, all the software and hardware, to support that latest encryption if you want to decrypt it or classify it or deal with it in some way. They also came out, Google is behind this, and all the browsers are supporting it, new networking protocols. So it used to be you browse the internet with TCP/IP. Okay. Well, TCP has been around a long time. Google came out with something called QUIC, QUIC, which specifically makes it more efficient for web browsing. Well, the firewall has to know how to deal with that new networking protocol. Now, another big feature, this one's a pretty big one that's new, is the encrypted EVE, Encrypted Visibility Engine. So this uses machine learning to try to identify malware going through the firewall without even decrypting it, just by the pattern and the way it communicates. So that's a really big feature, being able to stop malware that's encrypted without decrypting it. So that's the big feature.
So saving the time that you would have to, decrypt it, scan it, check it for vulnerabilities, and then so all of that load is it's preempted because it's able to tell it's able to tell what it is before having to decrypt it. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah. So if it knows that it's malware, you don't even need to decrypt it. It's already going to identify it as malware, is the idea. Now, in some cases, we might want to still decrypt, and you could be selective in what you decrypt and use a combination of these technologies.
Without going too much into the nuts and bolts of it, how is a firewall able to be able to tell just at a glance what if an encrypted piece is malware?
Well, there's two things really. It's using complicated machine learning technologies to identify and look at that traffic. And then it kind of combines it with other hardware features. So both for the decryption and these other engines, we have what you'd call crypto accelerators on the box that will help accelerate things. One of the things the crypto accelerator does is accelerate VPN. So it offloads it. Think of it back to the PC, like a gaming PC. That's going to be a PC that has a really expensive video card in it. That's offloading all the video work to the video card. These extra chips on here, crypto accelerators, and there's also a flow accelerator to improve throughput, are the same idea as like having the high-end video card in a gaming PC. Also, the result of that is, for instance, I mentioned that increased amount of VPN users. It's actually the 3100 highest end box can get over 20,000 remote users VPN'd in all at once.
Wow, 20,000 all at the same time.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive, considering that you're not seeing then a lag in network, right?
Exactly, that's the idea. Now, to get 20,000 on, you would dedicate it just for VPN purposes. But if you have that many users, you have to dedicate some equipment here or there. But
so you mentioned the technology in this, the crypto accelerators and the flow accelerators. These, what would you call them? Are they encryption tools or?
Well, they're additional hardware on the box that's going to accelerate different kinds of traffic. The flow accelerator specifically offloads different types of traffic just to improve throughput of the firewall.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't have to use the main CPU as much. So that's where that's helping.
Yeah.
Other things that are interesting too that are new on this 3100 series that they've only had on their higher end ones, because this is a mid-range series, is active firewall clustering. So you could have 2 through 8 firewalls all load balancing and working together to improve reliability and throughput. So that's a big feature for a mid-range firewall. In the past, that was for these modern firewalls, it was only on the level higher than this firewall.
Okay. So that makes sense then. So there's, for a mid-range, we're talking about a little bit more, certainly higher performance, but kind of a higher level of technology that you would normally find on the more premium or the kind of the enterprise level stuff. You're able to offer that technology to this mid-tier of business and mid-tier, in terms of that's great for SMBs, that sort of thing.
Well, probably the mid-tier is a term we use in the industry. A mid-tier would be maybe 500 to 1,000 user networks, that type of thing. It's not an exact thing. It's really mid-tier and up. Cisco does have another line below the 3100 that would be more SMB. There's their 1000 series firewalls, which really cover all the way from 5 users up to maybe 500 or more users. It's a pretty wide range or a gap.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it sounds like, that there is a very wide range, of Cisco equipment to be able to meet any type of demands that you have. And especially if partners listening and their customer is, maybe they're that one that you talked to that hadn't updated their firewall in years. Maybe they're still trying to string together consumer level products to satisfy all the demands that are coming in from their increasingly hybrid workforce. There's a lot of options there, it sounds like, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I talked to a different reseller last week, and he wanted me to help size a firewall and talk about its capabilities. That's something we could do, because it's not just the number of users, there's the internet speed, and then the level of security you want to enable, all the different features. But in this case, the customer, had a firewall that could barely do 200 megabits, and they're on a 300 megabit connection, and they wanted to go to a gigabit. And it was a different brand firewall. It was just old, was the problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, if it could only push 200 and you're paying for a 300 megabit connection, that's not good.
Right.
It's obviously too slow.
Right.
So they were looking at a new firewall, of course. And actually, it was, either the high end 1150, of the lower end series, or going into the 3100 series.
Got it. And so to kind of pull everything together then, so tell us a little bit about your role there with Ingram Micro in terms of, the resource that's available for Ingram Micro partners and resellers.
Yeah, my role is really helping users. When I say users, I mean our customers, Ingram Micro resellers, with different security solutions. So it could be Cisco firewalls, it could be other Cisco security products like their endpoint protection or Cisco Umbrella. There's a whole wide range of products. So my focus is just security and just Cisco. But we do have other engineers from a Cisco standpoint that cover other product lines, and then we also have people cover our other vendors too. It's not just Cisco. So I work in what we call the Business Transformation Center, and I have a whole data center at my ready with all different equipment in it. I have all different model firewalls and various different things running in the data center. Yeah, and the cost is nothing to our resellers. So we help our Ingram Micro resellers, and that could be just them or with their end customer.
Well, so as we do start to wrap up our episode, we always ask our guests the same final question, and that's, where do you see technology going in the next year? Super broad, I know, but maybe within this space, what are you seeing coming down the pike in the next year?
I see two things jumping out at me. One is kind of on TV right now. AI is definitely a big thing, and it's going to continue for good or bad. You're going to see deep fakes, all kinds of different things happening, but also good things. So that's kind of an obvious one. Another one, a little more in the weeds, but not exactly, is multi-factor authentication is getting to be more and more, not just important, it is, but required. Things that didn't require it before are now requiring it.
Yes.
There's different levels of it and quality of it. So I see that becoming more and more required everywhere that you log in, and not relying just on passwords.
When you say multi-factor, that's going to be beyond two, is it? Beyond two factors?
No, multi-factor is a more generic term. It could be two-factor. So two-factor is pretty common. Now, you don't really need to do three.
Yeah, and that's what I'm curious about. Like, at what point? So we're just, kind of making this transition from passwords to, to two-factor authentication. At what point is, two not going to be enough, and then we're going to need three? It's a little bit interesting to.
Part of it is the quality of that second factor. Like, doing text messaging is weak. If someone wants to break into a secure facility, you don't want your second factor being a text message, because they could compromise someone's phone. Not even just, there's ways hackers could intercept text messages without even fully compromising their phone.
Yeah.
Or another one would be just getting a phone call on a regular phone and having it read you a number. Those are not strong. Or email isn't a strong one. It's good enough for some home use stuff, but But a secure facility is going to want a stronger multi-factor, or a stronger second factor. So there's a lot of innovation in that area.
Yeah. For listeners who have any questions about something that we talked about today, or want to find out more about the BTC or how you can help them, how can they reach out?
Oh, it's pretty easy. Just btc@ingrammicro.com.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate all of the time and insight today, Tom. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, great to be here again. Thank you.
And thank you, listeners, for tuning in and subscribing to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro. If you like this episode or have a question, please join the discussion on Twitter with the hashtag B2B Tech Talk. Until next time, I'm Shelby Skrhak.
You've been listening to B2B Tech Talk by Ingram Micro. This episode was sponsored by Ingram Micro Xvantage. B2B Tech Talk is a joint production between Sweetfish Media and Ingram Micro. To listen to this episode and many others, visit ingrammicro.com.